Hi everybody, it's Kevin. This is a classic episode from last season. Enjoy. And don't forget to like us and subscribe. Thank you. Welcome to our podcast, When Life Gives You Lemons. I'm Kevin Henry, and my partner in crime in life is Pommy Henry. I have a rare disease known as spinal cerebral ataxia, which is a neuromuscular disease. This has left me mobility challenges as well as with a speech impediment, noise-induced anxiety.
Living with these disabilities for over 20 years, we have developed helpful hints and life lessons that we would like to share with you that has made our life easier and possible in some cases. We consider ourselves disability advocates and intend to educate ourselves and you about other disabilities and issues, and also talk about things we find interesting and frequently encounter when we're out and about.
And today we're going to talk a little bit about cerebral palsy.
So their plan was that we're going to take a disability and really do a deep dive into it so we understand it and can share what we know with you. We also, a few of these, we have friends that have these disabilities, and so we will be using some interviews with them to discuss their point of view and how they handle the disability.
Those interviews are coming up in a minute, but we're going to talk for a minute about cerebral palsy, kind of give you some background on the disorder, etc.
Cerebral palsy is a group of disabilities that affects a person's ability to move and maintain balance and posture. It is caused by damage or abnormalities in the brain, usually before, after, or during childbirth or early childhood. Cerebral palsy can have different types of symptoms depending on what part of the brain was affected. But some common symptoms are stiff or floppy muscles, uncontrolled or slow movements, difficulty walking, speaking, swallowing, and eating, problems with vision, hearing, and seizures, learning disabilities, and intellectual impairments. There is no current cure for cerebral palsy, but there is quite a few treatments for this condition, including medicine, therapies, surgeries, and assisted devices. It happens, we asked how common this was, and it happens in 2 to 2.5 per 1,000 live births. Why'd we pick cerebral palsy first, Kevin?
It used to be a lot more common in earlier days when medicine wasn't as far advanced as it is now. Now it's more than likely caused by either a drug interaction or an accident that occurs shortly after birth.
I think we talked about this when we were talking about President
Franklin Roosevelt.
I'm Franklin Roosevelt.
Yeah, we talked about this during the FDR episode 2, I believe it was.
As it was a possible, maybe he had this instead of the
polio. That's one of the
diagnosis.
Possibilities.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do is we're going to have two interviews. The first is a talk with a young lady named Alexis Johnson, who is a part of my martial arts class at Alexis Johnson. And then we're going to interview Master Alan Williams, who runs the Outer Limits School.
That you attended and helped with your therapy. Yeah. And we met Alexis when she was about 6 years old. How did that all come about?
Well, actually, it all started with a demonstration that Master Williams performed at her school. And in that, he uses people from the disabled class, such as myself, and shows how he's adapted the martial arts techniques to things they can do instead of focusing on what they cannot do. Alexis was really interested in it and spoke with him to get the details and took the time to talk to her parents. And that information is covered during our interview as well.
She was spunky.
Oh, yeah. And that is also quite apparent when you get to listen to her talk. She's very self-confident.
And she is now about 20 years old.
Yeah, she's actually enrolled in college and studying nursing. So enjoyed the interviews. I wanted to ask you a few things about cerebral palsy. And you just referred to it as CP. Is that like a common thing that I can get away with when talking to people with cerebral palsy?
Yeah, when you get into talking to people about it, you definitely hear the abbreviation CP because cerebral palsy is pronounced different ways. It's pronounced cerebral palsy, it's just a different pronunciation. So the easier way to do it is just do CP. Most people with CP will know what you are talking about.
Okay. Part of the information that we put out is helpful to, for example, friends and family, your support group, if you will. Did they get CP as well? That translates to cerebral palsy?
Yeah, it just depends on the kind of support group you have and how in depth of the research that they tend to do with it. For my mom and me, it was just always called cerebral palsy. It wasn't until a couple of years later when I started doing my own research that I learned that people call it CP. It just kind of depends on what group you're with and how in depth they want to go about it, because there are different severity levels to the cerebral palsy.
Okay, one thing just popped into my mind that I read somewhere. Is it true every case of cerebral palsy is a little bit different?
Yeah, every case is different because there are different severity levels. There's low to mild to severe, where low, it kind of just affects them. Mild is where you can visibly see that it affects them, and severe is not only visible, but you can also hear it because they're kind of laid back in a wheelchair and they don't have anything to move. They vocalize, they can't form physical words.
Right. Okay, I first met you at the Outer Limits Musulman martial arts courses. How did you come to learn about Master Williams and his programs for handicapped people?
Master Williams first stopped by our school, Oak Ridge High School, in 2009, the year after he opened his first building, and he was doing a demonstration as part of October Physical National Disability Awareness Month, because there's a week in October where it's Disability Awareness Month. And he was doing different programs on it, and he was showing that, hey, and he brought a few of his students with him to show us hey, these guys have this, but they're doing it too. So, it was all right, why not? Went home, talked to mom and dad about it, and we gave it a shot because the only thing I was going to get from it was a benefit. Not only just from going, but it was going to help with the muscles and being able to stretch, and I was able to make friends who I now consider family. Then, Miss Janie watched me from my hip surgery, and she'd help me crawl along the backside of the mat to just up and get and walking again after the hip surgery.
Right. Okay. How did progressing in martial arts help you?
It definitely challenged me, because there were certain And it's also like a challenge to myself with that, because there are certain things that I see other kids do that, like, oh, hey, I want to kick this high, or oh, hey, I want to do this. And I had to find a way to figure out how to do that, but they were also there to help me do that as well. Like, if it was a goal or something that I wanted to do, like, hey, I want to be able to kick higher with my right leg, he would give me the instructions sitting there how to do it, like the jump front kick. I couldn't get as high as the other kids, and, you know, that's just something that I had to work with. And so one of the ways that I learned how to do a jump front kick was actually by Sir Paul, who sat there and taught me hop with one foot and kind of do it like a bunny hop, you know, like you're jumping and kick one leg higher than the other and see how high you could go. But also part of that is you have to stretch. You've got to sit there, you've got to stretch, you've got to loosen those muscles, because if they're tight, you're not going to be able to get where you want to get to go and how you want to do it.
Yeah, right. Been there, done that. Okay, when you talk about working with Sir Paul, and we talked a little bit about martial arts, but in general, would you say you're a competitive person?
I am very competitive. Like, if I get a challenge thrown out in front of me and, like, somebody tells me, oh, hey, you're not going to be able to do that, 1, I'm going to find a way to do it. 2, I'm going to do it. And then 3, I'm going to show you that I can do it, and just so I can prove you wrong. Because I might, and this is what I always tell people, is I might be just a little bit different, but that's not going to try and stop me from doing what you can do or what anybody else can do.
Well, I'm glad to hear that attitude.
I am very determined.
Because of the way I talk, people assume, that don't know me, assume I'm like mentally challenged in some way. No, I just have problems talking. The part of my brain that says, this is how you talk, is not working correctly. So,
right, and everybody's got a little, I'm sure everybody's got a little bit of something that, you know, something's not working right or something doesn't work right. But some of us have
everybody does.
Some of us have it a little bit more than others.
Correct.
It makes it a blessing, not a curse.
Did you know, I don't know if you knew this or not, but Master Williams cannot fully extend his left arm.
Yep, I knew that one.
Okay. And
I forget how he told that story, but he's told that story before.
Yeah. It doesn't sound like a pleasant experience, but he's, you know, had that mindset from his own perspective of, okay, I have to learn it the right way, but I can't do this, you know. I can get it done, but it won't look correct.
It's all about changing it so it works for you.
Exactly.
There's always some way to modify it. There's always some way to make it work for you that other people don't think about. But as long as it gets the same end goal, does it really matter how you got there?
Exactly. Now, one thing I wanted to ask you about was towards the end of where I talked to you last, you were still in high school and you decided to run cross country. Now, the question I have is why? I mean, just obviously, you probably saw that as a challenge or something to do your way. But I never enjoyed cross country, and to approach cross country with an even more severe handicap, I just couldn't put myself through that.
Cross country was one of those things where, you know, they brought it up in 7th grade, and to me, I had no idea what cross country meant. When I thought of cross country, I thought, oh, we're just running. Yeah, okay, wrong. Scratch that process thought. You sit there in the meeting and they're telling you,
surprise.
hey, it's junior high. We're going to be running on the highway. We're going to be running on the gravel. We're going to be running hills. We're going to be running on rough terrain, and they're sitting there and they're explaining all this to me in 7th grade. And I'm going, oh, cool. This sounds like fun. This is where I can get outside. This is where I can play. And I got to, my friends and I got to talking about it, which was really kind of cool. And then, one of the kids in 7th grade looked at me and said, are you going to do it? I said, I don't know. I'm going to go talk to my mom. Because there were concerns with that of me running and falling, running on the highway, me falling, or, just in gravel somewhere and falling and tripping. And, that was something we had to look at, and it was something because, the way my neurologist had explained the stamina portion of cross country to me was when normal people and their muscles get tired, they stair step down. It's one little thing at a time. When mine are tired, they go from top peak performance down to nothing in a matter of minutes to, well, in this case, minutes, because, running a 5K took me 33 minutes to do. But starting to run cross country, it turned into something I was curious about. And then the competitive part of me kicked in, especially after some girl told me we wouldn't ever go to state as a freshman team because I'm a slow runner. And I was like, okay, well, let's see how this works here. Because that freshman year, I made 7th man after being told I wasn't going to make 7th man until my 10th grade or junior year. Well, he put a challenge out. The coach put a challenge out. I took it, and I ran with it, and cross-country wasn't, hey, junior high was 1.5 miles. 1.5 miles is easy work for some junior high kids, and for some others, not so much. But 1.5 miles was nothing compared to the 5Ks that I ran for 4 years straight. Because in order to get in shape for the races and just all over for cross-country, if you're running 1.5 miles as junior high practice, you're running 3 or 4 miles. For high school, if you're running 3 miles, the girls were running anywhere from 4 to 6 miles, and the boys were running 6 to 8 miles. Double the length of what they had to, because then 3 miles would be easier. And it would also build up your endurance and your stamina. Running cross country was also like another thing of therapy to me. I was outside. I could just let loose. It was a stress reliever for me because I could just run and I could go. Didn't have to worry about school. Didn't have to worry about studying. Didn't have to worry about my grades. I didn't have to worry about anything. I just had to run. It was something easy to take my mind off of.
That's one thing that didn't change from when I was in high school. Yeah, you run a lot more than you need to for the race, to get ready for the race.
Not to mention the warm-up that went with it before practice.
Yeah. The coach would say, hey, go out and run 1 mile or 2 to warm up. I'm like,
you want me to do that before we actually run?
Yeah.
Oh, our workouts were... He would always do ab workouts, and those would just kill me before I even started running. So by the time we were in the middle of our workout, everybody else had already just, started to break a sweat, and then when they'd actually run, they'd full-on blow and break a sweat. I was already dripping in sweat by the time we got to the ab workouts because I was doing twice the amount of work for my muscles that everybody else was putting in. They were still getting loose and everything, and my muscles were already I'm done. I want to go. I'm like, too bad.
Yeah.
Too bad.
You're trying to convince them to play along, and they weren't having it.
Yeah, and that's when you just, for me at least, that's when I would put music in, if I had it with me that day, if I had it on my phone or whatever, and I would just run. Because I could still hear the traffic, and I would run. Or, when I didn't have it, all right, cool. Find a piece of scenery out there that I wanted to get to. That's my checkpoint. That's where I would run to. That's where I'd be like, okay, hey, you get to here, you could walk. But then me, being me, I was like, okay, actually, let's go a little bit further past that. Let's do this. Let's get to here. And I kind of did that in practice a couple of times. And like within the first month, Coach Sire was like behind me because she would run with us. The coaches would run with us. Her son would be leading the boys. The girls would just take off on their own. And I was in the back half. And Coach would just be behind me. She was kind of like my little running buddy for the first couple of weeks because I would start out behind her. And then I would catch her. And then I'd get past her. And then I would just keep going. And then one practice I'll never forget, I hadn't stopped running. And usually by the time we get to the top of this hill there at the 4-way in Oak Ridge, I would have to walk because my legs would already be dead. And I just kept turning a corner and hit the downhill and got halfway down it. And all I hear is Coach saying, "Keep going, Johnson." And I'm like, I'm doing something apparently.
Okay, we're going to change gears a little bit. If you were to have any job in the world, now bear in mind, I know you're a lot younger than me, so money may not necessarily play into it to begin with. What job would you like to have?
Ooh. If I could do anything in the world, it would probably be a zookeeper because I like the big cats. I like the exotic animals.
That's kind of a good answer.
That's something I could see myself doing.
Yeah. I could see you doing that too.
I'd just pick up about every stray cat or dog I see anyway, so if I got to work at a zoo, I'm sure I'd lose my mind, I'm sure. I'd be like that little kid in kindergarten on the first day, like, "Oh, look at this."
Okay, Alexis, how many dogs or cats do you own?
Right now, I own 2 dogs and 3 cats.
And that sums that up. Okay, last question. If you were like omnipotent for like a nanosecond, what would you wish for? If it were all up to you.
Oh, just stick me in an ocean somewhere. Just literally drop me off on a beach somewhere and leave me. I would be good.
Oh, yeah, but obviously your time is not your own if you're in one of those programs. So, okay, Alexis, thank you very much.
If I could be stuck on a beach, yeah, I would be stuck on a beach.
I'm here today with Alan Williams from Outer Limits, Musulkwan. Alan, why don't you take a minute to tell everybody about your school?
Sure, Kevin, thank you. Again, as Kevin just iterated here, I am a 6th Dan black belt in Taekwondo, a 5th Dan black belt in Hapkido now, a master instructor in Kali from the Philippines, and then also a 1st brown in Judo.
Pretty impressive. Do you recall a student you had by the name of Alexis Johnson?
Oh, yes, of course. Alexis is a memory we'll never forget. She's a sweetheart and quality student.
Just say for a minute, say something about Alexis and how she fit into your educational system.
Alexis, I had the opportunity to meet after doing a demonstration at her high school. Alexis at the time was only 6 years old. And ironically now, I guess I've known her for approximately 17 years, give or take. And Alexis begun with us some time ago in Taekwondo. And I believe since that time had reached her 1st or 2nd Dan in Taekwondo.
Cool. I just spoke with her the other day. Apparently your family's doing well. She's doing well. Everything's good in her life. And she's actually going to school studying nursing.
I heard about that. She is a workaholic besides her former martial arts basis. Alexis doesn't seem to slow down and nothing seems to stop her.
That's true. A few years ago, the last time I talked to her, she was in high school and running cross country. I was like, okay, why? I had to ask her why. She just, thought she started out doing it in middle school, thought it sounded like something, she'd get outside, have fun, play with the other kids. She didn't realize how much work was involved, but when she got into it, she figured out what she had to do and did it. So,
pretty amazing, Kevin. What she told me is how she, even if she ended up in last place, she never stopped. Her drive and the potential she pushed was amazing.
Because of your time, you worked as a physical therapy assistant. Is that correct?
That was correct.
Did you know other patients with cerebral palsy?
Several, because I practiced for over 26 years. So yes, I was very acquainted with them.
So how does Alexis compare to those other patients?
To be honest, I've only seen one other patient per se that tried to push themselves with such an illness. I personally can't imagine. I've never gone through something such as these ladies have gone through, but Alexis has just fought. And even though you can visibly see some of that effect on her life, you don't see her stopping. I can't imagine some of the pain she goes through or some of the limitations she may have gone through, but I've never seen her stop trying or pushing through to obtain her goals.
Well said. Alexis certainly has a personality that she is going to do whatever needs to be done.
Agreed. That's one of the things I think that we were blessed with Outer Limits. In 1998, I actually begun the program for people, for an adaptive program that I feel like we aim to reach any individual with that opportunity to take their skills and help them to do what they can do. But Alexis was self-driven. Although she came to us with a need, she took that need and she's the one that progressed and drove herself.
Now, take a minute and address if a potential student wants to get in touch with you or an instructor, say, from another part of the country wants to consult with you and find out how to approach the situation with a certain disability you have experience with, how would they get in touch with you? What is the best way?
Sure. Obviously, they're welcome to go to our Outer Limits Martial Arts Facebook just to kind of follow us and see the pictures and see the information. But for a direct conversation, I really encourage them to call me directly. My home number, or my cell number, as it were, is 573-579-5036. They are welcome to email me or Facebook me, but I can reach them more quickly and more readily by calling me on my phone or texting me.
Okay, is there anything else you'd like to say about Alexis or about your school?
As far as Alexis, I just continue to encourage her, look forward to the next thing that she's going to do. I watch the things on society and the world for her to show up for that next thing, much like you have, Kevin, and very proud of you and your accomplishments.
Well, thank you. Thank you for being with us, and look forward to talking to you again.
My pleasure.
Boy, I really enjoyed that, Kevin. I enjoyed listening to those interviews.
So our next episode is going to be about deafness. Before we get a lot of people stating the obvious, yes, we realize that deaf people could not hear a podcast. So this is more to educate everybody else about deafness and the deaf community. including their support groups, which often include friends or family. So they can either point out things they've learned that they're to the deaf community, or perhaps
give us some feedback.
Give us some feedback on some of our misconceptions or things that we failed to point out.
Okay.
See you next time.
All right.
Bye. Oh, just in case anybody needs to get hold of us, they can do that through our website, which is www.whenlifegivesyoulemons.net.
All one word.
Yeah, I don't think you can type it any other way. Your browser will freak out.
Bye now. We are always looking to improve the podcast, so if you want to hear a specific topic, have a differing opinion, want to add something to the conversation, drop us an email. Our contact information is listed on our website. It's www.whenlifegivesyoulemons.net. We have recently added a companion YouTube channel called Making the Lemonade. If you enjoy the podcast, continue your enjoyment by joining us on YouTube.